some of the early arrivals in the stands, mostly wearing sky blue, of course, hoping that their team will win through to yet another semi-final. These two teams did meet in the round of 32 in 2019 when the Raw made off with a 2-0 win at Leichhardt Oval to give Robbie Fowler, you might remember, his first win as Raw coach. Since then, Fowler has departed. Raw have left Suncorp, and Brisbane still away to return to the glory days of Ange Postecoglou. This is the furthest they have ever been in this competition. Can they reach the last four for the very first time? In terms of the team news, Sydney go with the same 11 that saw off MacArthur in their last A-League outing. That was back on Boxing Day. Still no Adam Lafondra, so Patrick Wood continues up front alongside Trent Bahaja, although both Bobo and Milos Ninkovic are on the bench. James Donachie and Alex Wilkinson are two of those who've only just returned to full training after falling victim to COVID. Now, Brisbane Raw have a host of absentees, which means a senior debut for 20-year-old Louis Zabala, the box-to-box midfielder who grew up in northern Queensland in Townsville. Nick Olsen starts at left fullback in the absence of Corey Brown. Jesse Daly will play on the opposite defensive flank. Anton Mlinaric not eligible to play as per the terms of his loan agreement from Sydney FC. And there are another two youngsters on the bench in the shape of Eli Adams and Sam Klein. Daniel McBreen alongside in co-commentary today as the two teams come out onto the surface here at Jubilee Stadium. And Macca, what are you expecting from this encounter on a rather wet evening?
Yeah, it's in my opinion, perfect conditions. Around 22 degrees, a slight drizzle on the pitch, and makes for a good, quick surface. So I'm expecting both teams to look to move that ball around. Obviously, a long time between drinks for games for Brisbane. A lot of players out as well. So I think they'll probably need a little time to adjust to the pace of the game, but should be in for a big one.
Tim Danaskos is our referee. His last cup tie was the Wollongong Wolves against Central Coast Mariners game. He sent two players off in that particular encounter. Alex Wilkinson, one of the veterans in the A-League men's competition, and indeed the FFA Cup, of course, the Sydney FC skipper, and Jay O'Shea, equally vastly experienced, his Brisbane Raw counterparts. It's the first of two meetings in 4 days, of course, in League and Cup between these two. Andrew Redmayne knows both clubs very well. Spent a couple of years with Brisbane Raw. And there's Steve Corica, a Queenslander by birth from Innisfail in the far north of the state. He scored twice for Sydney in the very first A-League meeting between these two clubs all the way back in 2005. Macklin Freak and his understudy today, Jordan Holmes. Good to see there's still camaraderie between the two goalkeepers, and just caught sight there of young Patrick Yazbek, who will play in the midfield alongside Anthony Caceres for Sydney FC. As for Brisbane Raw, this is their first game in a month. They've had so many issues trying to get games on. Travel in and out of the state, of course, has been problematic. We've got this early kickoff so they can scarper back over the border. James Donachie won't be going with them, although he is a former Brisbane Raw player, like Andrew Redmayne. Started his career with the Raw before moving on to pastures new. So a rather diminished Cove with the early kickoff, but they're going to try and provide a bit of noise and cheer on their team for what they hope will be another semi-final. It is Sydney FC who get us underway, and it is launched crossfield towards Ryan Grant by Paolo Retre. And an early clash, very heavy clash, which immediately brings about the whistle from Tim Danaskos, so the two players can get some attention from the medical staff. That was a fair old thump between those two, Daniel McBree.
Yeah, both players obviously eyes for the ball, just head on head. Never like to see that. Referee stopping play immediately.
James Donachie is, excuse me, up and about. He's okay. They will take their time, of course, before restarting, as they always do with head injuries. But, no real blame can be attached to either player. Full-blooded attempt to win the ball. Clearly it's Lascano's come off second best.
Yeah, still down on the ground. They're just discussing with him. From that angle, you would think it would be more Donachie. He copped it to the front. But Lascano, maybe that tender area at the base of the skull. That seems okay now.
Both players just being held on the apron of the pitch just for a moment whilst we restart play. It's good that those protocols were adhered to. Particularly in the case of Juan Lascano, of which much is expected, Macca, but he's barely really had time to get his A-League men's career going because of all the disruptions.
Yeah, it's been a torrid time for Brisbane this year. Obviously, a month between games now, the travel restrictions where they've had to actually travel on the day of the game for their first few games. I spoke with Warren Moon yesterday and he said that they were quite happy they were able to travel yesterday and stay in the hotel for tonight, but obviously have to shoot back and then fly back down on the weekend, because if they stay for longer periods, they have to go through all those rigmaroles again with tests and all that kind of stuff. So difficult times, but Warren Moon said they just have to get on with it. You know, lots of players out as well.
Trent Bahadur offside. Yep, it's a problem right around the competition, isn't it, at the moment? Just the world that we live in, and it does feel as though it's never ending at the moment.
Yeah, Groundhog Day for sure.
Yeah.
That's for someone speaking of 17 days isolation I did over Christmas.
You had it. You had it.
So, yeah, I know how they feel.
Freak to launch it long. Ryan Grant just sweeping in behind for Sydney FC. It's going to be a throw for the home side. FFA Cup winners in 2017, of course, and finalists on two other occasions. The year before, 2016, when they lost to Melbourne City, and 2018 when they lost out to perennial winners Adelaide United. Although the Reds won't be winning it this year. Knocked out by Victory. Will face Wellington in one of the semis. He will win through to match up against the Mariners. Heavy touch initially off Milosnic. There's no way through for Matty Steinman. And a foul on Rattray.
Interesting to see, Simon, how Brisbane Roar just get through this first 20 minutes. Do they look to really explode out of the box, or ease their way into the game?
That was lovely from Caceres. Sorry, Macca.
No, I was just going to say the problem with easing your way into a game against Sydney is you can give them control of the game.
Now, Jesse Daly just arrived a fraction late on Ryan Grant, who hit the turf in quite a bit of discomfort. Back up on his feet now, pleased to say, but there was a yelp of pain here. I don't think you can attach too much blame to Jesse Daly, but it is a free kick. Did arrive a fraction late. So a set-piece situation from which Anthony Caceres will perhaps look to pick out the likes of James Donachie at the back post. Goes in that direction. Wilkinson to scamper after and retrieve. Back through Joel King. Caceres floats it nicely into the path of Ryan Grant. It was again being marshalled by Daly. Tidied up quite neatly by Yazbek for Sydney. Clever footwork by Woods, but just beyond the reach of Ryan Grant. And now Brisbane can get things moving down the right in the shape of debutant Louis Zabala. Here's Olsen. Challenge from behind, potentially from Yazbek, but referee saw nothing in it. And Patrick Wood completely losing his bearings for a moment. Olsen. Kai Truin. Go all the way back for Macklin Freak. Truin hits it long, and Jay O'Shea is off in chase. It's Donachie there ahead of him.
It's not a bad run from Jay O'Shea there, just looking to exploit the space in behind, but Donachie well read.
It's not really his go, Jay O'Shea, is it? Sprinting into those gaps. He's more the creator normally. Burgess right in the challenge. Mentioned that cup win by Brisbane Roar in Leichhardt back in 2019. They've never actually won at Jubilee Stadium. It's a good stretch from Zabala, who was slated on the team sheet to be playing on the right wing. Looks as though he's in a much more defensive role than that. He can play at fullback, Zabala. Part of the Roar NPL side during the winter months. Several more of that batch hoping for their big chance off the bench this evening, including Eli Adams and Sam Klein. Retro. Creeping forward down the left is Joel King, and they've hit him superbly. Fortunate with the control, but into where Trent Bahaja was stationed. Maybe just got a little bit put off there by his own teammate, Trent Bahaja.
Also good defending, desperate defending from Brisbane there, just to get a foot in.
Brisbane with a chance to break. It's Alex Parsons who left it a touch behind. There's captain Jay O'Shea, and Sydney are able to break clear. Max Burgess.
Thought he could have rolled Trent Bahaja in there. It was a great run from Trent Bahaja, and you know his pace, getting him behind, testing a young player that he was up against. Instead decided to go across ball, a more difficult pass.
Bahaja turned into a bit of a cul-de-sac there.
We spoke about the sprinkling of rain we've had, Simon, but you can see water really spraying off when players knock that ball. I'm wondering if it's a little bit wetter than we thought it might have been down on ground level.
Well, they had the sprinklers on as well, and then of course we had that shower about half an hour before kickoff, so it's had a good old soak in. Dry at the moment. It's an intelligent ball by Steinman for Olsen. A really clever first touch by Miliusnic to exploit that open space on the wing. Scano waiting in the penalty box. O'Shea plays it out for Olsen, who tries to hit the back post where Parsons was waiting, but coolly done in the end by Joel King, and Redmayne between them.
And for mine, Simon, that's where you want to see Nicola Miller, isn't it? In those wide areas, running forward, running at players.
Which is what Trent Bahaj is about to do here. And it was the right idea, wasn't it? He knew exactly where Patrick Wood was. Scott Neville in the way at the expense of a corner.
Yeah, and that's what the striker wants as well. Early ball in behind the defenders. Great ball from Bahaja.
Moon in the foreground there, the Brisbane Roar coach. Waiting like everybody else to see what Caceres will deliver here from the corner. Deep towards Wilkinson, who nodded it down well. It's just fired over the top of the goal in the end by Patrick Yazbek, or rather Patrick Wood, I should say.
There's another good ball in from Caceres, wasn't it? And as the ball came down, actually thought you'd see Wood trying to get that hip over and his foot over the ball, just couldn't quite get over the top of it. Sails over the top of Freak's goal. It's good technique, but just couldn't quite get the hip over, get that ball down.
Patrick Wood, one of the goal scorers in Sydney FC's 3-0 win over Macarthur, their last outing on Boxing Day. Along with goals from Trent Bahaja and Max Burgess, means that they've put together back-to-back wins in the league for the first time this season. After a rather slow start to the campaign, Wilkinson bundled off the ball all too easily, and it only needed the right delivery from Lascado. And Miliusnic was one-on-one with Redmayne. Disappointing for Brisbane.
Disappointing is the word. Plenty of time there from Lascano to pick his pass. Just rather lollied it in. Made it easy for Redmayne to come and collect.
Lollied it in? I like that. Not sure Warren Moo would have done. That's a really good opportunity for the Roar.
I don't think you're going to get too many opportunities 2v1 in the Sydney box where you have time to pick out a pass.
Scano, of course, comes with great pedigree. Junior with both Liverpool and Real Madrid. Played in Russia for 8 years. Latterly for Yenisei Krasnoyarsk.
I'm going to assume that that's correct.
Hey, you played in Romania for some teams that had long names too.
Yeah, I did. A long time ago. But when you look at that pedigree, again, it makes you think a ball like that should be executed a little bit better.
Eased forward by Ryan Grant, who gets the return off Caceres. See that spray just fizzing up off the turf as the ball goes along the floor. Bit of room here for Grant, time to have a look. And he's picked out Max Burgess really well. And he's not done enough with that. No real marker on him.
No, it was actually a wonderful ball from Ryan Grant. You always know when he gets in that position, facing forward, he's going to whip a ball in. And look at free header, really. Just can't really direct it on target. I wonder if he wasn't sure he had so much time and was waiting for a brace for the defender to come with him, but didn't come.
Maybe both teams just showing signs of a bit of rustiness after the layoff. As mentioned, Brisbane's last game a month ago. They won the loss away to Western United at Amy Park. Heavy off the chest of Grant, straight at Steinman, who turns the ball over for King. That's a lovely ball by Rattray. In behind the fullback for Max Burgess. He's trying to find the angle for the cross, and he does so in the end. Just a touch too heavy for Caceres, and Olsen was able to clear.
It was a great ball from Retro, wasn't it, to really unlock the defence. Burgess was in that wide area. Patrick Yazbek had actually just drifted to the edge of the box. I thought if he just played a little square ball, could have been a nice shot on target from Yazbek, but decided to take on his defender.
That'll be the goalkeepers. Good shout and claim from Macklin Freak. Short by Steinman for O'Shea, and then back through Truin. Daly. Square by Neville for Truin. This is good football by Brisbane, building up nicely. Steinman, that's where it breaks down, unfortunately, for the Raw. Only momentarily, though. O'Shea. Turned back by Parsons. Zabala. Everybody back behind the ball for Sydney. Olsen. Time, but didn't really deliver the right sort of cross. Sydney looking to spring forward and utilise that pace of Bahaja that we know he possesses. Loose ball from Macklin Freak. Final touch off Truin presents Sydney FC with the throw. The 1-2 between King and Burgess. Now Rattray, Yazbek, Grant. Straight at Daly though. Easily cleaned up by Brisbane. Play out quite neatly. There was a foul there, I think, on Parsons, but good advantage played by Tim Danaskos up towards Lascano. Alex Wilkinson wins that particular duel. He didn't earlier on in the game when he was just really bumped off the ball by Lascano, and Brisbane should have made more of that particular chance. But it's a tussle to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. As you said, we haven't seen too much of Lascano. The stuttering start to this season continues.
Brisbane need him, of course, because goals have been a huge issue for them. Coming into this game, in the league at least, they were 289 minutes, 4 hours, 49 minutes since Luke Ivanovic scored for them in round one. They've scored a few in the Cup, of course.
Yeah, 7 in the Cup, but obviously against NPL competition.
Need to find a goal scorer,
yeah, they
and
do.
the feeling is that Lascano is the guy that can deliver for them.
Well, I spoke to Warren Moon earlier in the season. He said he's more your typical number 9 striker, will bring people into play and then get in the box. I think if that's the case, you need to get players in and around him to work off him, get players running into those little channels either side of him as well.
That was a very tidy piece of defending from Ryan Grant, because a looping, spinning ball with Mila Jusnic, who is lightning quick on your shoulder, to deal with that was tricky, and he did it with aplomb. Ryan Grant. Theatrically, but there was contact from Grant.
Ryan Grant's not so sure.
few choice words the way of the Argentine. I reckon I can take a guess at one or two of them. However, free kick it is. And Alex Parsons to deliver. Scott Neville is one of those who's pretty handy at these sorts of situations in the air. He is one potential target. Lascano jostling for space, but steered easily away at the near post by Ryan Grant. They'll try and reset through Parsons, out off Burgess.
It's disappointing again, that cross not getting past the first man.
By the way, I've got a thumbs up from Luke Wilkshire for the Russian pronunciation, and he should know. Thanks, Lukey.
Surely he says it with an Aussie accent.
Here's Burgess trying to slalom his way through and drawing the contact from Lascano. He's pretty heavily involved, isn't he, in the early stages? Juan Lascano.
Yeah, he's putting himself about a bit, letting the Sydney defenders know he's there right from the kickoff.
It's Brisbane's turn to get the whistle. Challenge from behind by Patrick Yazbek, who's literally only just broken through into the Sydney FC first team. But of course, as we all know, there's a vacancy there at the moment because of Luke Bratton's injury. Big loss for them.
He's done quite well, Yazbek as well.
Yep.
Young guys in this Sydney team looking to stake a claim. Warden Bahaja scoring goals up front. Yazbek has come in and done well. I think maybe with Retre and Caceres both in those central midfield roles, maybe too similar. It's good to bring in a different style of player there, which releases Caceres further on this right-hand side, which he's more accustomed to as well.
And you'd imagine that Callum Neuenhoff would re-emerge again at some stage. I know he's had his injury issues.
Yeah, he'd be itching to get out there.
Here is Yazbek. Picks out Joel King beautifully. For whom Retre is available. Now in possession, and Burgess has stolen a march on the Brisbane defence here. They scramble back well though. The Raw defenders, and Zabala will bring it clear for Warren Moon's team.
A couple of occasions now Sydney have found some space down that left-hand side, some good forward runs.
It's a bit clumsy from Yazbek. Coming through the back of Daly. There's Warren Moon. I mentioned that first ever game between Sydney and Brisbane, or Queensland Raw as they were, back in 2005, and Steve Corica scored twice. Warren Moon was part of the Queensland Raw team that day. Roared on by over 23,000 at Suncorp before he moved on to Scotland to play for Queen of the South. Rattray has lost out in that midfield scrap, and they're going to have a crack here from long range. Good efforts by Jay O'Shea. Just catching practice in the end for Redmayne.
Yeah, but in these conditions, as the ball fell to Jay O'Shea, you were just thinking, just have a strike. Got hold of it quite well. But as you say, Redmayne covered quite easily. But it's good to see players wanting to get a strike off. Breezy pitches, breezy conditions, can strike a ball. See great technique.
Brisbane frustrated that they've been pinged for the latest free kick, Jesse Daly in particular. Anything in that, Macca?
Not for me.
Tend to say, agree with you. Burgess. King bombing forward on the overlap past him, but Sydney have lost the ball. Steinman lost his balance and the ball, and still complaining that He felt he was impeded. Into the channel for the run of Patrick Wood, but took a tumble on the greasy surface. I was interested in your views, Mac, on how important, of course it's a cup quarter final, you want to be in the semi-final, but in the context of Brisbane's season in particular, they're bottom of the A-League, albeit having only played a handful of games. How important is a win for them tonight? Never been in the semis of the Cup before.
Massive, massive. It's, as we've talked about their disjointed start, and it's not been the best start in the league, but 2 good wins over NPL competition. Now a win, if they can get a win tonight against Sydney FC, one of the premier clubs in the A-League, the confidence goes through the roof. Plenty of young players out there as well, then that belief starts to come. And a lot of things can come, the confidence can come from that, and that can change the whole mindset around your season.
And it would be a home semi-final against the Mariners as well. Same for Sydney, if that's the way it pans out. As Lascano works it out to that right-hand side. It's a useful delivery, but Donachie had its measure. Redmayne unable to prevent the corner.
That was a better ball in then, wasn't it, from Brisbane? Had the defender stretching for it. Into the dangerous area around that 6-yard box, central areas.
Again, they've got plenty of height that can get on the end of any sort of decent delivery from Alex Parsons. Going to be the in-swinger with the left boots. It's a deep one, too deep in the end. Neville's done well to keep it in play.
Have a look in the middle.
Still 2 in the box. Oh, and that could have been an own goal off Jimmy Donachie.
Not the direction he wanted that to go. It came off the back of his head.
Caceres. Right in the challenge of Miliosnic. Was he clipped there by Steinman? Referee didn't blow the whistle immediately, but linesman's flag did go up, which made his mind up for him.
Yeah, well, just watching the Warren Moon down on the sideline, I think he believes the same as me. I didn't think there was too much in it. I suppose, there is
I think
a
that's a
clip.
foul.
Take that back.
Maybe the referee's view just partially obscured momentarily. So another set piece in a similar sort of situation to the one they had a few minutes ago. Again, it's Caceres into a good area. Donachie to retrieve. Retre. Behind him is Yazbek. Oh dear. It's not what was required. Yazbek frustrated with himself. It's a clever play by Nick Olsen, who you might remember started his career in Sydney with the Sutherland Sharks and Western Sydney Wanderers. Sydney have pinched possession here, and they're looking to steal in Trent Bahaja behind. It's Bahaja on the turn. Didn't really get a hold of that one.
I really scuffed it, didn't he? But it was a nice ball in behind. Sydney have found that space in those wide areas, just good runs in behind. Just clipped in behind that side, and Bahaja, as he comes back onto his left, really didn't get a hold of that. Disappointed with himself. Did well on his first touch. It was the second that let him down.
Goalkeeper as yet having to put timesheets in for overtime.
Just the 2 quite easy saves for Redmayne.
Might be one on here though. Bahaja to try and gauge the bounce of the ball, which wasn't easy. Steinman to bring it clear for Raw. Through Truitt. Again, Again, they just drop off that Sydney defensive line to pick up the ball in the pocket of space. It was Jay O'Shea. Zabala on the right. Daly with a touch. Might open up here. And the shot's eventually charged down, but it's going to be a corner. Alex Parsons busy, and he's got a tidy left foot as well.
They've actually moved the ball quite well through midfield, Brisbane. At times, nice 1 and 2 touch combinations. Those players looking to play forward when they can.
Change of corner taker this time. It's not going to be Parsons. It's going to be Jay O'Shea. Bit of variation. Anti looking to attack it. It's towards that penalty spot. Steinman first to react. Daly. And Steinman still in a good position here. Just got underneath it, but decent opportunity for the Raw.
Yeah, it was a great play from Daly there to reverse passing behind as all the Sydney players were drawn to the ball as he shaped the shoot. Great ball in. Just leaning back, Steinman getting his foot under the ball. Really should be hitting the target from there.
Did get his first goal for the Raw in the Cup against Peninsula Power in the round of 32. Comfortable wins for the Raw to get to this stage over the Power and the Lions. And intriguingly, that's a win over Sydney in 2019. And Leichhardt Oval remains their only cup victory over A-League opposition.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not had a good record in this FFA Cup down the years.
It's quite an astonishing record there.
Well, considering it's been going since 2014 now, and obviously we did have a year off in 2020 because of the pandemic. So this easily their best return in the FFA Cup. And they'd love to go one step further. Those fans hope they're not going to. And Sydney on the move here in the shape of Patrick Wood, who was forced wide. It was good defending in the end from Kai Truid. Made the angle difficult for him. Daly trying to burst through midfield. Parsons. Two Sydney players snapping at his heels. Parsons will have another go. And again, impressive through the midfield, Alex Parsons.
Yeah, industrious there. Under the watchful eye of two defenders. Shrugged them off and managed to get a shot away.
Rain starts to fall quite steadily again here at Jubilee Stadium. Over the top by Rattray, but well anticipated by Freak.
Switched his line well, Freak. He's actually looking at the last break that Wood had. Thought he might have had a chance of a strike from long distance, as Freak continually standing outside of his area, looking for any balls coming through.
Parsons, Olsen was available. He does eventually choose Olsen, but probably a little bit later than he should have. It's going to be a Brisbane throw though, off Caceres. Warren Moon just a little bit frustrated that the transition wasn't quicker.
Yeah. I'm sure his players thinking, we haven't played for a month. Just give us a breather, boss.
You can see from that camera shot just how heavy the rain is here at the moment. We've had a fair bit of this in Sydney over the last couple of weeks.
The La Nina effect.
I know you don't get it in Newcastle, obviously, God's country. left untouched, won't
Oh,
she?
it's been beautiful.
Wilkinson. It's not the biggest crowd here at Jubilee Stadium. Those that are here, at least those ones away to our left, are getting pretty soggy at the moment.
And they're not perturbed at all.
No, they don't care. Singing in the rain. Back through Yazbek. Wilkinson. Gets it back off Burgess. Brisbane holding their shape quite well. Sydney probing. Ryan Grant. Caceres. Awful lot of traffic to try and get through for Anthony Caceres. Brisbane unable to get out this time. Burgess. Squared up by Yazbek. Burgess. King is the option wide left. Zabala got a foot in.
I'm just seeing Brisbane just starting to drop a little deeper as the first half progresses. Sydney getting a lot more time on the ball, a little closer to the goal. Still compact, but it's just giving Sydney that little bit more time to work closer to their box.
Sydney working hard to try and find this opening. Grant went first time. It's a little bit off beam, but he'll get the loose ball, and the cross was a little bit too high for Neville, and it's flashed in with real pace by Patrick Wood and then nodded wide ultimately by Max Burgess, and Brisbane were stretched there.
It was initially great play from Ryan Grant, getting the second ball and the cross in, and it was a lovely touch from Neville to take it away. But as the ball fell, first strike really of any note on goal, on target, as it fell back out, I think it was to Bahaja, or maybe Wood. Was it Wood? He just couldn't quite find his header.
Max Burgess.
Max Burgess. Yep. I'll get there in the end, Simon. The ball came to him a little quick, just couldn't react quick enough with the header. Just came off the back of Sydney with a little bit more time on the ball, a little bit more, Brisbane a little bit deeper. At the end of it, they fashioned a nice chance.
First real meaningful piece of work for Macklin Freak. That's glanced off the arm of Louis Zabala, who otherwise is adapting quite well on debut.
Yeah, he's done quite well.
Caceres. Nicholson trying to drive him back. Caceres over the top they go again. Sydney, it's been a tactic that they've had. On the slippery surface. Another foul by Yazbek meantime. He's got to watch his step perhaps a little bit. Patrick Yazbek. I think that's the point that Jay O'Shea is making to Tim Danaskos. How many fouls?
He's been a little niggly. We saw earlier when he gave the ball away, went hunting for the ball again. Just the odd foul here, there, and everywhere. As an opposition player, you'll definitely be in the referee's ear.
They're not particularly malicious fouls.
No, but they're game
accumulation.
Stoppers. Yeah, they are, and they're game stoppers as well. It breaks the momentum of Brisbane. Allows their team to get set back up.
Usnich having to use his pace to keep that one within the bounds of play. know we've talked about this before with Nikola Miljuznic, but his real big asset is pace. Are they utilising that to its best effect at the moment, Brisbane?
In my opinion, I don't think they are. Off camera, we can see him now. He's drifted himself out to the left, in a more natural position for him. And nice play from Brisbane through the centre of the midfield, but doesn't really play into his strengths.
Here's Steinman. Parsons. Nick Olsen wanted it played early. Didn't arrive. It does now from Truin. Olsen trying to wrap his boot around it, but sadly for Brisbane to no avail. But the ball should have gone earlier.
Yeah, it should have. Olsen had gone forward and Miljuznic he drifted inside, and he was actually, as he drifted inside, motioning to play Olsen in front so we could get the ball forward, and they went backwards before going forward again, which allows Sydney to get a player across and put pressure on. It's only small details, but those small details can mean a big difference.
Sydney FC fans away to our left having an absolute ball in the rain. Most of them have taken their shirts off. Which is probably not a bad idea, actually.
Put them under the seat, keep them dry.
You don't want to be walking home with a wet shirt, do you? Parsons. He's been very busy for Brisbane. Here's Miljuznic. Cutting in on the angle of the penalty box. Ball back for Olsen. Pretty certain that was a cross.
Yeah. I don't think he saw Redmayne off his line there. I think he just mishit that.
Interesting career trajectory, though, isn't it, for Nick Olsen? We mentioned that's outside of his career in Sydney with the Sutherland Sharks and as a junior with the Wanderers, but then went off to play in Kuwait for a couple of seasons, where Ryan McGowan is at the moment, of course.
Yeah. Read somewhere that he said he just wanted to try something different, go and expand his horizons, learn something new from a different place, get out of his comfort zone.
And enjoyed it.
Yeah, which is great. That's what you want to hear from young players. You don't want them to be comfortable staying, in their comfort zone all the time. Go and test yourself, push yourself. It's only going to improve you as a person and as a player.
Grant. Stretch of the leg from Miljuznic prevents it getting through. Steinman. Oh, it's the right ball, wasn't it? Just got away from Parsons. Into the last 90 seconds of the first period. There might be a bit to be added on for that head clash early on as well. Who's on top, Macca?
I think Sydney had more of possession, probably looked the most dangerous, only created one real opportunity, but a couple of half chances, got some good spaces in wide areas. It's just that real final ball or final touch or shot. It's probably let them down. Saying that, Brisbane haven't had some too bad crossing opportunities. And that's probably what their biggest letdown has been, the delivery, the final ball in.
Comfortable enough for Joel King. Caceres mindful of where Ryan Grant is. Interesting reading Ryan Grant this week saying, even though he's long since recovered from COVID, it's taken him a while to get back his match fitness. It's going to be a Sydney corner.
Yeah, it's not hard. It's not easy to get your match fitness back when it's constantly being postponed as well. So I'm sure he probably feels better than some of these Brisbane players at the moment.
2 minutes of stoppage time to be added.
Just thinking back to that pull that was played through to Parsons just a minute or two ago. It just looked a little tired as he reached for it. I watched him after that. Just looked a little lethargic.
Sydney Work the corner to Burgess at the top of the box, and now Yazbek's going to have a go. And the deflection will take it behind for a corner from the opposite side. So Sydney finishing the first half on the front foot. Macklin Freak has had one good save to make from Max Burgess, as some of the Sydney FC fans in the dry of the spectator grandstand here at Jubilee. Caceres' corner. Back out it comes for Caceres again. Rattray. Bahaja trying to just flick the header on. And ultimately, Brisbane get the whistle. Danger averted for the Raw.
Yeah, it was good defending from the Raw there. As the ball was cleared, they got out really quickly. Forced all the Sydney players to get out with them as well. It's just the time of the game where, you know, after not playing for a month, it could be easy just to be a little bit sloppy. Tiredness has crept in just before hard time, but great from the defenders. Out quickly, close the space.
And there we go, half-time at Jubilee Stadium. The rain stopped for now. Sadly, it's not rain goals in the first 45. Warren Moon's team have had some good situations, particularly that opportunity that Juan Lascano spurned early on. Macklin Freak has had to make one good save, but Sydney FC have probably had the better of things in the opening 45. Keenly contested. At the break, we are still no nearer to knowing who will have that home tie against the Central Coast Mariners in the semi-finals. Join us again for the second half in about 15 minutes. In the meantime, half-time scoreline at Jubilee Stadium in Kogarah. Sydney FC 0, Brisbane Raw 0. of the quarters to be played, and we are still locked at 0-0 between Sydney FC and Brisbane Roar, despite Macklin Freak having to make a rather smart better of the two teams. No changes made by either coach at the break. Brisbane Roar to get us back underway, seeking to become just the second team from Queensland to reach the semi-finals. You might remember Brisbane Strikers did it from the NPL competition back in 2019 before losing out to Melbourne City. Sydney FC have won 3 of their 4 previous quarterfinals, and it should be an intriguing second 45. Daniel McBreen.
Yeah, it's been probably dominated, as you said, a little bit by Sydney, but I think Warren Moon probably would have said to his players at half-time, you've got a player of Lescano's stature in the middle. If you sort out the crossing in the final delivery, you may have a chance of scoring a goal. That was probably their major drawback in the first half, but some good play from both teams. Just that final pass, final shot is what's been lacking so far.
Ferried back by Patrick Yazbek. Did mention in the first half that there was a vacancy in midfield, of course, with Luke Bratton being injured. We should mention that Mustafa Ramini is available from Saturday. New signing. We saw him running laps pre-game.
We did. He looks like his normal effervescent self. Can't wait to get involved. Always with a smile on his face. So just can't wait to get the boots on and get out there and play again.
It was Rattray, who's potentially one of the jerseys you might take. Sydney look to build down the right. It's Burgess. Seen off by Jesse Daly for now. Burgess again. Normally has a pretty trusty left peg, but it's got it on the wrong setting at the moment. And thankfully the rain has gone away just for the time being as well. Sydney FC warming up both Elvis Kamsoba and Babo behind the goal away to our left. Got a very strong bench today, Sydney. That could potentially be key, especially with the two teams not having that much football in recent weeks.
Yeah. A month out of games for Brisbane. The last thing they want to see is Babo, Ninkovic, Kamsoba coming on.
Only outfield player with real experience on the Brisbane bench is Jack Hingert. He's coming back after injury.
Not a renowned goal scorer, Jack.
Sure he won't mind you saying that. Joel King. Caceres. That's a really tidy ball, that, from Woods. Yazbek was muscled out of it by Daly. Come back briefly by Max Burgess for Sydney, but Brisbane have it through Alex Parsons.
Gee, that was an important intervention from Daly, wasn't it?
Sure was.
It was great play from Sydney, and they look to be breaking away. Just got his body across the line, muscled his opposition player out of it.
Yeah, you miss that challenge, and all of a sudden, you're in trouble. Clipped forward by Grant. But, first to it was Nick Olsen. Well, that's lovely from Rattray, at least initially. And then he turned straight into Lascano, who puts it into a good area for Nikola Miljuznic, and they're built for handball there, Brisbane. Inside the D, and the whistle's gone now before Miljuznic got his shot away. There was maybe a suggestion that an arm came into play.
Yeah,
was it from too close range?
Yeah, I think Alex Wilkinson defended quite well there. got his body in front of Mile Uznic and actually stood him up. He's got a nice tackle in it. You can't really penalise him as it comes up off the ground from that close.
Still, we remain deadlocked. They'll do it all here again, of course, at the weekend in the A-League men's competition. As the teams try to battle their way through the pandemic. Here's Jay O'Shea. Zabala. O'Shea let it run for Steinman. And Daly got his wires crossed with Zabala.
Yeah, wrong decision on the pass there. Just needed to play the ball wide. Zabala. There's no chance of getting him behind from that deep.
Just off camera, Elvis Kamsoba is being given some instructions behind that goal away to our left. I wonder whether he's going to be that first change for Steve Corica.
You can see Nikovic joining the warm-up crew now as well.
Three handy weapons to have off the bench. There is Elvis Kamsoba going through his instructions with Robbie Stanton, Steve Corica's assistant. Meantime, Neville. Parsons. Pretty sure Lascano was the target, but he gave him a filthy look for that delivery. You've got to provide players like that with a service.
You do, but
he just hasn't had it tonight as yet.
But as a striker, you have to keep making the movement. You keep making the runs, because the one time you don't, they will get it right.
You speak as a man with experience, Marco.
Yep.
Steinman got himself out of a little pickle there quite nicely. Just to echo your thoughts, Macca, they have been very tidy on the ball, Brisbane. Just that end product has been missing. Here they go with that neat interplay in the build-up. Daly threading the needle for O'Shea, and O'Shea's cross again is not what was required.
Well, that time Jay O'Shea, as he's putting the cross in, Lascano's not in the box. He'd come short, looking to join in the play. Just left just Mile Uznic on his own.
Brisbane do have some support in the stands. Here's Zabala. He's looking for the return off O'Shea, but he was well marshalled. He's found the gap now, though. So useful ball by Zabala. And Lascano keeping Donachie honest. And he's won it, the Argentine. Parsons lining one up. Shot blocked, though, by Yazbek. Zabala has gone down with cramp, I think. Young man on his senior debut. Or is it a knee problem?
Maybe his thigh's locked up.
Well, that'd be a shame. His first senior start for the club. I think he's done reasonably well.
He's had a reasonably good game. He was off the back of a good cross there with some good play going forward.
Well, Brisbane warming up all their substitutes, but it's Sydney who are going to make the first move off the bench. Elvis Kamsoba, as predicted, is ready to come on, and he replaces Patrick Wood. So a little bit of something different up top alongside Trent Bahaja for Sydney. Patrick Wood had probably the best opportunity of the game so far when he brought that save out of Macklin Freak. Meantime, Louis Zabala is back up on his feet, but I don't think he's going to be able to continue. And Jack Hingert is ready to go for the Raw.
There's a lot more experience there with Jack Hingett, but Zabala's done well in his first game. It's unfortunate to come off in this manner.
Well, hopefully it's the first of many for the young man.
I think it will after that performance. Promising.
Confirmation of those changes. We played 10 minutes of the second half. Hingett's first touch. Neville left it a touch short for Hingett, and Caceres is away. Still going, Anthony Caceres! And Macklin Freak has to punch it over the top of the bar. It was an exhilarating run from Anthony Caceres and a stinging drive in the end, bringing the best out of Macklin Freak.
Yeah, great run from Caceres. You see Ken Sober makes the forward run, which drags the defenders away, creating the space for Caceres. And he smacked some thunderbolts in from that range before and had another go there, but Macklin Frick up to the task.
So Caceres to deliver the corner, his effort one. He's got plenty of air underneath that one. Wilkinson underneath it. Oh, and it's just wide. Was it James Donachie who got the final touch? He threw himself at the ball. Might have been a stray boot or elbow or foot in there that connected with him as well. But Sydney have gone close on two occasions.
Well, there was plenty of air, as you said, Simon, on the cross. And it's Alec Wilkinson real strong at the back post, puts it back in that danger area, and Donachie, as you said, threw himself at the ball, copped a boot to the face for his troubles.
Well, Sydney serving notice, perhaps. They're starting to go up a gear.
I think it was the run of Cam Sober, the fresh substitute, who actually created the space for Caceres, that willing run in behind. A little bit more energy into the attack.
Hingett being pursued by both Cam Sober and Yazbek, and he's got away from both. Redmayne to launch it forwards. And the runners of Cam Sober and Bahaja will make life tricky for the Brisbane defence. Cam Sober claiming he was obstructed there as he tried to barge his way through. The look on your face, Danny McBreen, says you're having none of that.
No, I think Jack Hingett used his body well. If anything, I thought Cam Sober gave him a little tug to try and get around him.
Neville turned around the corner for the run of Parsons, but there were bodies in the way of him. Wilkinson's clearance, and out it goes off Jesse Daly. Burgess trying to muscle his way through, but a good stretch by Neville. Steinman had a look outside him and there was nobody there. And I guess sometimes that's what happens. Nick Olsen is not a natural left fullback. Doesn't always provide that width. Bahaja's ball in. Oh, a bit of miscommunication. Perhaps between Neville and Freak.
Yeah, Neville not taking any chances there. I think he thought he had a player coming behind him, a Sydney player. So, well, I'll get rid of this. Maybe not a loud enough shout from the keeper there.
Sydney worked the corner short. Here's Burgess. There's plenty to try and pick out. It's Wilkinson at the back post, but he was leaning backwards and offside in any case. Sky Blue skipper. A bit of a puff out of the cheeks.
Puff out of the cheeks in frustration.
His 20th season as a professional now, Alex Wilkinson. He's the only player still in action who featured in the inaugural grand final.
Well, the way he's going, he'll keep going for another few years.
Yeah. He was on the losing side that day, of course, for the Mariners, but he's won plenty since. Scoop forward from Daly. Miliusnic couldn't quite gather it in. Might be a chance here, though, for O'Shea. And the shot's deflected behind. It's going to be a corner for Brisbane. Good little opening, that.
Yeah, not too bad. I think that little passage of play with Miliusnic there, I think that sums him up at the moment. He doesn't seem to be getting too much of the ball, and when he does try to get it, he's trying to do a little bit too much, or he's trying to really create something that rather than do the basics. On that occasion, it was lucky it fell out and they regathered the ball, but he seems to be starved of any ball and possession.
An hour played. And Brisbane with the corner, which Jay O'Shea earned and will take. Everybody's gathered towards the goal line and they angle it towards Parsons instead, who's shaped for the big one on the volley. Didn't quite get the connection.
He's worked hard today, Parsons.
I think he's been good.
No, he has. He's worked really hard and looked to get forward. One of those miss-hit shots like that can actually turn into a dangerous one as it bounces back and everyone's attracted to the ball. But again, I think it was Alex Wilkinson just getting his body in the way and snuffing out any danger.
He's only played 34 minutes off the bench in the A-League. Alex Parsons, this is a driving run from Rattray. Outside him is Burgess. Little step over to get to the byline. Useful cross too. And seen out by Hingett for a corner. Good break that from Sydney.
It's starting to liven up a little bit now. Teams at both ends with half opportunities. Good defending, nullifying it.
Going to be Anthony Caceres with the corner. Sydney players looking to make their move. Needed a bit more elevation. It'll pop out though for Burgess. Reset through Yazbek and then King. Rattray disguised it for Caceres, who cuts in on the angle. And Burgess. Yazbek. Straight at Lascano's strength. Keeps him away, at least initially, from Ryan Grant, but it's Sydney who win the throw. I was going to say, there's not too many players out-muscle Ryan Grant, but I thought Lascano had done there for a moment.
He did for half a second, and then Ryan got back.
Rattray. Burgess. Grant outside him, looking to float it towards Kamsoba. 1-0 Sydney. Simple as that. They were all attracted towards the near post, the Brisbane Roar defenders. Kamsoba left unmarked, and it was a tidy finish with the right boot from Ryan Grant's cross. Sydney FC lead.
Well, it was a wonderfully worked goal from Sydney FC. The run from Ryan Grant in behind, the weight of pass to just lay it in front of him. And he just clips it as everyone's drawn towards that near post. Kamsoba, calm as you like, side foots it into the near corner.
It's a very composed finish from Elvis Kamsoba. And you think back to the earlier part of his senior career, he might have snatched at a chance like that, but kept his eye on the ball and placed it purposefully into the corner.
It's a wonderful finish, great composure. When a ball comes to you like that, at times you have the temptation to swing the laces at it and really smash the ball, but you could see that Macklin Freak was struggling to get across the goal and just placed it in that bottom corner. Nice finish, great goal from Sydney FC.
So the breakthrough arrives, courtesy of the man who really made his name in this competition, the winner of the Mike Cockrell Medal in 2018 during his days with Avondale. Credit to the delivery from Ryan Grant, who really put it on a plate for him. So what can Brisbane do about that? This is Lascano as the rain tumbles down once again. Parsons. And the shot's deflected, and there might be a chance here for Miliusnic trying to set himself. Lascano boxed in, and the final touch was off the raw striker. It's going to be a goal kick. And the rain coming in waves. That's how bleak it looks in Sydney at the moment. The outlook for Sydney FC in terms of the FFA Cup, all of a sudden a bit brighter, thanks to Elvis Kamsoba. Parsons, as Brisbane look to mount a response. Neville. Parsons again. He's had his pocket picked by Paolo Retre, who then breaks through the next challenge of Jesse Daly as well, and Sydney are away here. Oh, it's not the ball though for Bahagia from Retre.
Well, he still had time and space in front of him to keep driving. Needed to commit a defender.
If anything, maybe he had too many options there, Paolo Retre. Meantime, Lascano battling with King. Little break here for Daly. And then subsequently for O'Shea. A bit more urgency now about Brisbane. Hingett. Steinman. Gets the return off Truin. Daly wanting a bit of movement up ahead of him. Square by Steinman. Little spin by Miliusnic. O'Shea hangs it up and over for Nick Olsen. Can he find the right delivery this time? Again, the answer is no.
No.
It's been a constant theme today.
Yeah, and that time they had numbers in the box as well. It worked to play nicely out to that left-hand side. Again, the delivery lets them down.
Cyrus Demi is being readied on the bench for Brisbane. Meantime, it's Caceres. It's going to be a goal kick, and Scott Neville giving his teammates a bit of a bake there as they allowed Caceres to make that progress through the midfield.
He's done that on a number of occasions now. He keeps driving and driving, and the defenders keep dropping off. I mentioned earlier he has scored a number of goals from distance, so you can't let him have space in that area.
It's going to be two changes apiece here. And we're going to see senior debut in a moment for Eli Adams for Brisbane, along with Cyrus Demi. Harry van der Sarg and Babo are going to be introduced for Sydney FC. Here's those changes now. So Juan Lascano takes his leave. Still not quite at his best as yet. And Nikola Miliusnic makes way for the debutants. Eli Adams, who comes with big raps. Left winger. He's got plenty of confidence, plenty of ability. And actually scored a great goal against Raw for the NPL All-Stars in pre-season. Trent Bahagia and Max Burgess take their leave. And Harry van der Sarg and Babo are with us for Sydney. And Sydney are straight on with it. Yazbek down the left for Kamsoba, scorer of the game's only goal so far. Tied it up by Daly, momentarily anyway. Van der Sarg with the nutmeg, clever. That's some way to introduce yourself off the bench. Yazbek for Retre. And beyond him is Caceres. A little bit too heavy, that ball from Retre. Still alive though for Sydney. Not quite sure what that is from Paolo Retre. Donachie cushions it out towards Bobo. Fascinated to see what impact those changes have for both teams.
Well, we know the Sydney FC players, got experience there. These young Brisbane Roar players coming in, it's time to make an impact.
They've got just under 20 minutes plus stoppages to do that. Swung out by Yazbek towards Grant. Donachie. Wilkinson for Joel King. Caceres. Kamsoba. Quick feet to get him through the gap. Here's Bobo, around one defender. Scott Neville made the block. Brisbane was stretched there, and there's a foul on Alex Parsons, which relieves that little bit of pressure, but Sydney looked very menacing there.
Yeah, Kamsoba, wonderful feet and acceleration as well. And then the little reverse pass to find Bobo.
Eli Adams with his first contribution. He's earned his team a free kick, and they're going to get the game's first yellow card. James Donachie, late on the youngster. Just a little glimpse of that ability that I'm told he has a bucket load of, Eli Adams.
And I'm sure Warren Moon would like to see a little bit more in this next 20 minutes as well.
If they're going to keep their cup hopes alive, then they have to, let's be honest. Free kick's been taken too quickly for Tim Danaskos' liking. Now he's ready. O'Shea and Redmayne came out to punch and didn't really make it. Cyrus Demi trying to make a nuisance of himself inside that penalty area. Sydney FC deal with it for now. It's by no means a done deal for those in sky blue. They've been given a bit of a careless helping hand there by Brisbane.
Offside flag. I think now with Brisbane, a couple of substitutions being made, some young players on there. It's coming into the towards the last 15 minutes of the match. We're going to have to start pressing a little bit, look to try and force the issue with Sydney.
The question remains for Brisbane, who's going to score the goals? It's been a big issue for them this season. Lascano now off the pitch. Cyrus Demi, of course, did score a hat-trick in the FFA Cup earlier on this season. But that was against NPL opposition, with respect to them. But yeah, in an attacking sense, it's down to the kids now for Warren Moon's team. Little flick around the corner by Caceres. King off balance, couldn't wrap his boot around it. Down the line for Eli Adams. Here he goes, the youngster. Two defenders with him, and that was one too many.
That's what you want to see from your substitute. Start making those forward runs, stretch that defence.
Mentioned it was Eli Adams' cup debut. Did actually feature once in the A-League, late off the bench, strangely enough against Sydney last season. Scored 14 times in the NPL competition in Queensland in 2021. Yazbek was trying to steal in on the blind side of Parsons and has done himself an injury in the process in trying to do so.
Just wondering if he rolled his ankle as Parsons used his body to turn.
Certainly went down in some discomforts. Patrick Yazbek, Milos Ninkovic wouldn't be a bad replacement if necessary.
Yeah, just at the end there, I think
That's
he
it.
just caught his toe in the ground.
Jars the ankle. It hurts that.
Yeah, it does hurt. See the physio there saying, no, he's done. Is that right?
Well, he doesn't want to get off the pitch because Sydney are not yet ready to make their change. So they're down to 10 for the moment. And Brisbane trying to take advantage of that. And it was Eli Adams who was trying to steal a march on the Sydney FC defence, but no real power to trouble Andrew Redmayne. Milos Ninkovic will be with us. Next break in play. Providing he's ready to go though. He was behind the goal when the signal came.
He's been warming up for a while now. I gave the shout out to him to come down.
And Yazbek just loitering around the edge of the pitch.
He doesn't want to leave, does he?
Doesn't want to go. Here's O'Shea for Brisbane. They found the pocket of space now. Eli Adams stood up well by Wilkinson. Joel King just rolling the ball out of play, so they can now make that change, Sydney FC. Patrick Yazbek has finally given up the ghost. But he's made a decent contribution today, and Milos Ninkovic is more than a capable replacement, as you remarked upon earlier, Daniel McBreen. The last thing you want to see is Milos Ninkovic coming off the bench, particularly when you're trailing.
Exactly. It was that dreaded turn as Corica looked down and you just heard Milos, come on. All the Brisbane Raw players were like, oh, here we go.
Shows the depth of Sydney when you can bring a player that's been to a World Cup off the bench. Parsons trying to have a dig from long range. Steinman sold a bit short there by Olsen. Ninkovic quickly into it. There goes Harry van der Sarg, who of course should be fresh and full of energy off the bench. He's made good progress and will get a throw for his team. Off Olsen.
He'll have his tail up from his last FA Cup outing here where he scored a nice goal. Gets MacArthur.
Yep, Sydney of course had to do it the hard way against the Bulls, winning 2-0 after extra time. The other goal scored by James Donachie. The clock's starting to be against Brisbane if they want to force a similar scenario here. Trailing as they do to that Elvis Kamsoba goal.
Back at that time in that game, Simon, we were talking about Sydney's woes of scoring. We spoke about Brisbane's now, and started the season couldn't really find the back of the net. Unlike Sydney FC, lots of talent in that front third, relying on the defensive players to score on that night and get them through the game. They've started to find their feet, those strikers.
Here's one of them, Bobo. And of course, Luke Ivanovic, who scored Brisbane's last A-League men's goal, not available tonight for the Raw either. Caceres. Oh, finds the gap superbly for Joel King, who will cut it back, and it was Van der Sarg arriving. And he hits it pretty cleanly as well, but Raw had bodies in the way.
I think it was Bobo actually that blocked the shot.
Well, you fancy that would have killed the tie off once and for all.
It was a nice play again down this left-hand side. Lovely run from Joel King. And again, great pass inside.
Ninkovic with a layoff. Cam Sober, they're queuing up here for Sydney, and Van der Sarg again. This time way over the top.
Here's that cross from Joel King, and he hits Bobo on the backside as he tries to get out the way. Brisbane need to get a foothold in the game. Sydney's really controlling the game at the moment.
Well, at least the rain has taken a break the last couple of minutes. More changes afoot on the Raw bench. Somehow and from somewhere, they've got to try and find a goal. Cyrus Demi's off on a run and trying to get on the end of that ball from Steinman. He was a little bit clumsy in attempting to do so past Donachie, who had front position.
Donachie had read that ball quite well. He's got his body in front of Demi, who, as you say, just clumsily just ran into the back. No need.
Down by Steinman, Olsen, O'Shea, Demi. Oh, the sliding challenge from Donachie was late, and it could be a second yellow card here. Yep. James Donachie sent off for a second bookable offence for Sydney FC. Now that makes it interesting for the last few minutes here at Jubilee Stadium. And at first glance, yeah, even on the replay, ref's got it right for me.
Yeah. Sorry, Demi, just with a little heavier touch, just coaxed Donachie into the challenge. When you're on a yellow card, you can't be jumping in like that.
Well, he was one of the Sydney FC heroes in the last round against MacArthur with that goal. But now he's left his teammates with a bit of a problem, even with that one-goal cushion. Just opens the door potentially for Brisbane. Parsons and O'Shea, the two potential free kick takers for the Raw. The wall of four for Sydney, which Andrew Redmayne readjusts once again. Key moments in this FFA Cup quarter-final. Is it going to be O'Shea or Parsons? It is Jay O'Shea. Oh, and Andrew Redmayne was worried enough to dive at full stretch, but in the end it flashed wide of that right-hand upright.
Well, he struck it cleanly, didn't he? And as you say, Andrew Redmayne was at full stretch. I'm not sure if that was going inside the post. He would have got there. Looks back ruefully. Well, they've got a player down now, Sydney. It's opportunity for Brisbane to really take this game back.
Problem is, they've only just got 6 minutes plus stoppages to do so. Up until that moment, Sydney were pretty comfortable with their advantage.
They were. And Sydney is just, Ryan Grant has come in next to Alec Wilkinson, and Van der Sarg has gone back into that right back position, into a 4-4-1.
Yeah, the two banks of four with Bobo the outlets. Brisbane going to have moments like these. Ellie Adams, across it goes. Parsons trying to place it in that far corner. And Warren Moon was already half up celebrating.
Well, it was a great chance, wasn't it? As the ball came across, he had all the time. You see here, the ball just comes across, deceives everyone. He has all the time to pick his spot, and he just scuffs it. And that's enough for Joel King to just step in and take the ball away.
Threaded through for Demi. It's going to be defence that will get Sydney FC through now. And it goes towards Olsen. It's going to be another corner for the Raw, earned by Eli Adams. How big moments change football matches. It's second yellow for James Donachie. Makes it a nervy last few minutes for Sydney FC. Jay O'Shea with the latest corner for the Raw. Sydney desperately trying to scramble it away off the head of Wilkinson. Hung up towards Demi. Headed it away from goal rather than towards it. Reset through Parsons. Jesse Daly clips it in. Brisbane camped on the edge of Sydney FC's penalty area. That will give them a little bit of respite. Not quite the chemistry there between Olsen and his teammates.
Now, on total different pages on that one. That was a good passage of pressure there from Brisbane. Just relieved the pressure valve.
Fourth semi-final in the FFA Cup short history is within Sydney FC's grasp. But they're going to have to do it the hard way. Bobo gets on the end of that. He's going to be their outlet for these last few minutes with support from Cam Sober when they can. Cam Sober will be expected to drop in and help defend, which is what he's trying to do now. It's Eli Adams on the charge. That one is pretty quickly snuffed out. Cam Sober. Oh, that's clever. Completely bamboozled Nick Olsen. And then combines with Bobo, Ninkovic, if they can find one more. Joel King is free on the left. It was lovely from Ninkovic. Here's King. The cutback for Ninkovic. And King again. Well, all that was missing was the finish there. That would have been a quite wonderful goal for Sydney FC.
Yeah, fantastic. Ninkovic in the middle of it. A beautiful piece of skill to return past the Bobo. Finished with Joel King looking to do the right thing, looking to just glide that ball over to Bobo at the back stick. A la Ryan Grant for the goal.
Let's see how ambitious Sydney are from this set piece. Casera's trying to weave his way through. Adams robbing him of possession. Demi deep inside his own half. Well-timed challenge, that by Van der Sark, no foul. Referee Danaskos had a good view of it. Probably on balance, Sydney FC deserve to be in front over the course of the 90 minutes, and we are into the 90th minute now, but it's just made it rather intriguing, that red card, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And look, let's be honest, I think they were quite comfortable. They were controlling the game. They were limiting Brisbane, really, to crosses from wide areas. And like you say, one moment can change the whole complexion of the game. And when we thought we were going to see Sydney maybe cruise out the game and potentially get a second, they're now defending their hearts out against this 11-man Brisbane team.
O'Shea. It's good football. Steinman. Deflection. Redmayne sent the wrong way. Another corner. They're starting to rack up the corner counts for Brisbane Roar. And we move into the first of 4 additional minutes. As Joe O'Shea prepares to deliver this corner. And it'll drop out for Steinman. They're queuing up here. Surely, Demi. Sydney FC somehow scramble it away. I think it was Rattray off the line. Back in it comes. Redmayne had to be strong and was. Well, goodness me, it was like pinball in there for a moment or two. And I think it was Paolo Rattray who got the clearance. It was Demi with the first header. Steinman at the back post. They were literally queuing up. Demi again. And Rattray scooped it clear.
Rattray with the double clearance. Time seemed to stop for a moment as the ball dropped to Steinman. He had all the time in the world, and when he played it back in centrally, probably needed to be a first-time finish. But desperation, 3 and 4 players back behind their goalkeeper, Sydney FC.
But try as they might, Brisbane, they just cannot find a goal. It's a recurrent problem. And they're very close now, Sydney. Still a bit more defending to do. Here's Olsen. Neville able to make unchecked progress forward. That's a rather tired-looking ball. Oh, and Harry van der Sar got a touch of good fortune there.
He knew what he was doing.
You reckon?
Just sort of bounce off the inside of the leg back to the keeper.
Perfected over many hours at the training ground, yeah? Redmayne thumps it forward from one end of the pitch to the other, which is not necessarily what Sydney need right now, because it's going to come straight back at them.
I'm sure Bobo is liking that as well.
Here's Hingert on the right, in towards Demi. Now the whistle is gone, and we're going to have a free kick here for Brisbane. Hingert was impeded.
Not too sure. I thought they were, just as Brisbane were having a strike for goal, he awarded the free kick.
And the rain tumbles down once more. Might only be time for this chance and maybe one other for Brisbane. There's a lot riding on this delivery from Jay O'Shea, a whole cluster of players. And Sydney deal with it at the near post. It's going to be a corner. Scott Neville saying he was being held. Look at my jersey, ref. Tim Danaskos not interested. And it might be all on this for Brisbane. Macklin Freak has come forward. The Raw goalkeeper. That really would be a story, wouldn't it? As the rain buckets down. Oh dear. Well, Jay O'Shea might have just handed Sydney FC a ticket to the last 4.
Yeah, well, we've seen a couple of players lose their footing down in that corner. As the rain belts down, Jay O'Shea won't want to see that one again.
Sending him fast here. Andrew Redmayne's just got his studs caught in the nets as well.
Tactical.
And he's looming as the match winner. Elvis Kamsoba off the bench. Can barely see through the driving rain that's coming across Jubilee Stadium at the moment. It's been a rather bizarre end to this game, but by and large Sydney have dominated it. And as of the blast of that whistle, have won it. Elvis Kamsoba's goal was enough in the end, despite that late flurry from Brisbane after the second yellow card issued to James Donachie. Kamsoba with the tidy finish after being teed up by Ryan Grant in the 64th minute, and it's Sydney who go through to the last four for the fourth time in the competition's 7-year history. Brisbane bow out, leaving the Strikers as the only team from the Sunshine State to reach the semis. A bit of revenge, you might say, for Sydney for that round of 32 defeat 2 years ago. And they're now just one game away from yet another major final. They will host the Central Coast Mariners in the semis, and here's how they won it, Daniel McBreen.
Yeah, it was a wonderfully worked goal. Ryan Grant with a lovely ball, just placed it over the top as Cams. Look, you see him look up there, it's wonderful. Kamsoba, as we said, you have the tendency sometimes to splash your laces through that, but he looked at the keeper, picked his spot, side foot, beautiful finish into that near corner, and wheels away.
And the celebration wasn't bad either.
Exactly, the regular celebrations, I was waiting for it. But as you say, Simon, a game that Sydney controlled for most part, made it a little bit difficult for themselves at the end, but deserved winners.
Yep, disappointments for Brisbane, but Sydney march on to the last four of the FFA Cup. They will entertain the Central Coast Mariners. They have defeated Brisbane by 1-0 here in Kogarah. Stats that matter. And in the end, Brisbane ended up out shooting Brisbane by 12-11, but I think that was more to do with that late flurry post red card for James Donachie. But they might have made it a little bit different, but again, the lack of goals are a problem for Warren Moon.
Yeah, it is. And I'd say tonight it was more the final pass for that delivery. They had got into good positions in wide areas. They've got attacking players in Lascano in the middle who would look for that kind of play, and they let themselves down in that area.